Namaste. Good evening. Welcome to Macau. And what a great location. I was told that you got to introduce about currency. Nobody can forget about the currency in Macau. Pataka, Diwali. That's good. But as I get started, I want to introduce myself. I've been living in China for 7 years. I ran China business. My daughter is trilingual. She speaks Chinese, Hindi, English. So talking about a globalized world, guess what? They're going to be pretty interesting kids when they grow up. And the preferences they have in terms of technology, in terms of how they want to consume information, is very different than how I might be used to. And that creates significant opportunity and challenge. So I have 3 messages today. The first one, of course, is it's a great time. There is a lot of interesting things happening. Emerging markets are growing. More and more people are coming out of poverty. Technology adoption is growing. And that creates significant opportunity for each and every one of you. No matter what the short-term issues might be, but this is a significant opportunity. Now, I was coming across an article which talked about what's happening in the industry. This is Mr. K.V. Kamath talking to McKinsey about what's happening in his business. So what this shows is where is his revenue coming from in ICICI. And this is a 2007 data extrapolated to 2010. So in 2000, if you look at the business they had, most of the business was coming from branch operations. Some from ATM, but mostly from branch. Fast forward 2010, the business mix has tremendously changed. Now you can see the branch operation is less than 15% of their revenues. And most of the business now is moving towards internet or internet-enabled. I was recently in a strategic planning for one of the Chinese insurance company in Shanghai. And they talked about one of the company they're most worried about is the company that is a search engine in China. And I said, there is a license you have 400 branches, you have billions of dollars in assets, and your number one biggest competitor is a search engine. Please explain how you see it. Their argument was that today, if most of the new traffic, most of the new customers they're getting is all on internet. Existing business is through branch operations, but all the growth is through internet. And that creates a significant challenge for them on how they reduce the cost structure in their branches so they can invest to support the new customers. And they think that if they do not do that sufficiently and effectively, some search engine or another Web 2.0 company can disintermediate them between them and the customers. And the company will have to depend on another Web 2.0 property to reach their customers. And that's the strategic planning they're thinking through. So as we talk to them more about it, we realized that the quality of execution in the IT operation was very critical to the success of the company. Now, when has that happened that the IT operation execution quality defines how well the company will succeed? And I think next 5 to 10 years, that phenomena, we're going to see it more often. Here is a few other things that are happening which defines the speed of the business. Now, this is a 2011 data. Some of this is from 2010, 2011. But you can see how the transactions are increasing more and more new transactions are happening on internet. So you can see from Walmart perspective, 1 million transactions per hour. You can see how many quotes are being generated from an NYSE per second, which is 200,000. You can see mobile apps, which is 73,000. Now, mobile apps in a corporate scenario is nothing but a service being delivered through a different operating system. So if your IT today cannot support a service-oriented architecture, guess that's what's going to be challenging from mobility perspective as well. 1765 domains are being registered every minute, and now it takes only 15 minutes to map a human genome versus in 1993, it took 10 years plus. Now, more importantly, this is still the start of S-curve. In next 8 years, the compute resources that is required will have to be 10x of what it is today. That means whatever is being used to compute and process and render will have to go up 10 times in next 8 years. Now, that's an amazing amount of processing power has to grow. Now, how is that processing power can be supported while the cost structure has to be contained? And that's the view that we are saying that current structure and architecture will not be able to support what the upcoming needs are. Now, a few other stats that you would see that requires changes in the way we think about IT. By 2016, 10 billion mobile internet-connected devices. This is going to lead to a significantly new type of services, interactions, and the customer service. And that is going to be larger than human population at that time. Today, 82 petabyte, Yahoo, one of our large customers, running on 40,000 servers. Facebook is taking 105 terabytes of data every 30 minutes. And a couple of other pieces why the quality of service becomes very important. 28% of the users will not return to a website if it is not performing well. And two, a 1 second delay, 1 second, have a huge impact on the customer satisfaction, as much as 16%. So you can see the quality of IT execution has a huge impact now on the customer's satisfaction, on the revenue, margin performance, brand, and so on and so forth. So IT is becoming a critical part of the business. It has the center stage now in terms of the future of the business. But at the same time, user expectations are growing, cost pressures are rising, and how do we marry the two? So our view is that today, if you look at it on the left side, this is a typical IT map where there's a lot of proprietary systems, siloed systems, departmental systems exist, and there is a lot less fungibility or elasticity or agility in terms of ability to use compute resources, store resources, or networking resources. Also has set of proprietary programming languages which cannot be translated into each other. And that creates a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of challenges from a cost perspective. Today, some of these mainframes, the maintenance cost is so much higher that the IT cannot invest for the new development and new innovation and new type of customers that are coming to your businesses. And so that creates a significant challenge. How do you manage the cost as well as make sure that we can continue to meet the increasingly higher level of expectation from the customers? Now, we have been looking at ourselves internally to Dell as well as talking to our customers, and this is the slide that I use with that insurance company as well, that for us to believe that there is a huge migration and transformation of IT has to be done. From the left, which is a legacy environment, to a lot more fungible, a lot more elastic, a lot more agile resources that could change from compute, store, networking side, can have the manageability, can have the security, can connect with how the customer wants to come and access the information, can leverage public cloud as and when it's effective and as and when it's cost efficient. And putting it all together is a huge change that the company has to go through because the customer is demanding it, cost pressures are demanding it. And that change is a several-year change. We think for us to get to completely on the right picture, it will take 5+ years within our own environment. Now, we have a $10+ billion of Dell.com business today, and it's still growing. But at the same time, for us to continue to make every single service within Dell in a service-oriented architecture where it can be supported by an app, could be supported on any mobile platform, bring your own devices phenomena, that is going to take as much as 3 to 5 years in the coming times. So again, the point here is that there is a huge transformation and migration required from your business, existing way of doing things, and some of you are already ahead. You probably are defining the new set of architectures already, but most of the companies that I've talked to are still 70+% is in the left bucket. Legacy architecture and moving towards the right. The key thing about transformation is we don't want to throw out what's working. We just want to make sure whatever new we bring in can work interchangeably with the existing infrastructure. And we grow, and we pay as we grow. Now, if you think about what we have done as a company is from our vision point of view, what the architectures in the future are going to look like. First big change that is happening is on the mobility growth. You saw some of the data about how the mobile phones are starting to exceed the human population. The mobility is driving a significant change in terms of the client virtualization side. So we want to make sure that as more and more devices are being brought to company, how could we make sure the information never leaves the data center? Information cannot be abused. And that's why we went and bought a company called Weiss. And this is has a more than 50+% share in the client cloud computing side as well as thin client perspective. And that company becomes our foray into saying no matter what your device is, we can make sure your data is being containerized or being securely delivered and being remote swiped as and when it's needed based on the loss of the data and so on and so forth. The second big change that we see is that traditionally we have seen server, storage, and networking as three set of different products. They are converging. So I will show you a little bit later today that how in a single chassis we today can deliver a compute blade or storage blade or a networking blade. And most of the intelligence in terms of deploying or giving capacity or provisioning goes to the software layer. And that's where we recently bought a company called Quest, which has a tremendous focus on the manageability, access and identity management, and the security side. So again, there's a big change in terms of convergence on the data center perspective as well. And the last piece is the rise of the cloud. Cloud efficiencies can be as much as 1/3 of internal IT today. But if the IT is virtualized, the internal architecture is changed to make sure we can take care of the best practices, it could be as much as still 20 to 30% advantage. So there will be a need where you can leverage the public cloud on a capacity on a go, disaster recovery, or just based on the cost efficiency side. And how do we make sure that the public cloud data is being integrated with your existing internal private cloud perspective? And that's where we recently, the data integration layer is what we brought through a product called Boomi. So by which we can make sure that the public cloud and private clouds are talking, application data layer integrations are happening. Again, there's several other companies that kind of talks about how things are changing. These are the several assets that we have built so we can come to market with an end-to-end solution perspective. And I will show you some of the examples on how this is going to work. Now, Dell, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of things have changed at Dell. So at the sake of just giving you some information about Dell, I want to make sure you know who we are in terms of as a company. Today, we are #1 cloud infrastructure provider worldwide. We have a 45% share. So no matter which search engine you go to, no matter which social media site you go to, we have a 45% share in terms of branded data center products. #1 in iSCSI storage size, 17 supercomputers run on our products. We have 42,000 service providers, more than 10,000 ITaaS customers. A couple of other things that you may know. Security is a big focus for us. Every day we are managing, monitoring, responding to 32 billion security events worldwide. We have the managed security offerings called SecureWorks, and that secures today trillions of dollars of financial assets, from malware, from hack, from any of the external threats to a corporation. Next generation's security wall that we have done through Sonic Wall's perspective. I think that's another product we have added. Insight One, healthcare, we're #2 worldwide in terms of healthcare services perspective. And if you know, in the cloud, we have a healthcare vault which manages 5+ billion archival images today. These things are highly governed, high level of privacy requirements, and we're delivering that through cloud today to patients throughout US, Europe, and Asia. Now, I told you that how I'm going to show you the transformation and the change that is leading. Now, this is an example for a mid-market customers, and think about a remote office inside a large corporation as well. It's a pretty similar setup. For us to create a small office setup or a branch office within a large corporation, the set of requirements it will take to build an infrastructure will be something like this. The server nodes, storage nodes, networking, bunch of cables, UPS, software, and all that have to be put together by someone in your organization or company that you are leveraging, a partner you're leveraging to put together for you in a remote location. Now, this leads to high OpEx, high level of dependency on a partner, and high level of ongoing administrative cost. Now, let's look at what we are bringing to the market. Now, this product will launch in near future, so it's not available in the market, but I want to make sure I can share with you what's coming up, where in a single chassis, all you have to attach is a power and a networking cable. Everything else is taken care of. Everything replicates with your data center. Everything can be centrally managed. It has a policy-based backup. It can remotely as well as policy-based give the compute resources, store resources, and networking resources to different applications. This is elastic, fungible set of compute, store, and networking resources which doesn't require or nearly zero requirement of on-site local administrative tasks. Now, that's an example of how all of these things come together where the cost structure becomes extremely low in terms of managing the IT. This is an example. Let me give you another example. Now, we have been leading the hyperscale data center side. So if a customer wants to scale up or scale out, hyperscale or integrated scalability. Recently, I will give you an example of one of our large customers in Arizona. Now, Arizona, if you know, it's in US. It's a very hot state. Temperature runs as much as 33 degrees. And they wanted to build a data center on the rooftop of their building, not inside. And they wanted to make sure we can give them a modular solution which have a high level of energy efficiency. They needed something so they can communicate to the customers about their green credentials as well. And so the structure we delivered to them in a modular scenario is at 1.03 PUE, that power unit equivalent, if you look it up. That means that the only 3% wastage is possible against the total user-defined requirements. That's one of the highest level of modular data center that anyone has delivered on a rooftop at 100 degrees Celsius. Today, all our servers are air-cooled, agent-free monitoring, and so on and so forth, which is what has led to us becoming now #1 in server in Asia Pacific and Japan in the most recent quarter. So what we also recently launched is an active system which requires 75% lower administrative tasks for a large, complex data centers. So this is Active System 800. What I showed you for a branch office, apply that to a much larger, much complex, much more scalable data center. And you get the idea of how the future data center, where you don't have to define based on application, compute, store, networking, you can have a lot more fungible, elastic, and much more agile infrastructure that can be deployed based on the application requirements as and when it's needed based on software, from the software perspective. So very different type of architecture. Now, why this is important? Well, one, it leads to a significantly higher level of utilization. Okay? Let me tell you a story. There is a famous hospital in Bangkok called Brahmangrad. And they had a data center probably the size of this room. And they wanted to, they had a real estate issue in the sense they are in the central Bangkok and they just couldn't expand. And they had to build a new children's play area and some others, and they couldn't find the real estate. So we worked with them, and the new data center that we have built for them is actually less than 1/3 the size of this data center, this room. So as a result, their service levels are going up. Why? Because through the use of virtualization, through the use of new technology, their utilization is much higher. They can level load very, very differently. They can define the resources as and when needed. So not only it takes less power, it takes less space, and it's less costly for sure. Now, as a result, they can redeploy this money to create new set of services, new set of application, new set of capabilities to serve their customers and their patients better. Again, that's the direction. How do you manage the new customer requirements with the cost pressures? And that's the new architectures that are coming through, new views and strategies that we're showing you can really help you accomplish both. So we believe this is the four key areas, core pillars to how we do this. So first and foremost, on the left uppermost, I talked a lot about virtualization and convergence and how do we make sure we can leverage that. Clearly, the user innovation or the innovation in the company go up as the BYOD and as the mobility policies are implemented. So how do we make sure that the BYOD policies are implemented without sacrificing security and without sacrificing the manageability? So I think that's the second piece that comes in. I talked about cloud, which is public cloud is here to stay. We think this is going to take a much bigger prominence in your IT policies and in your cost structure and the management structure. And last but not least is, while we have this data in your private cloud or public cloud, and you need to process and drive real-time insights, but at the same time make sure that the data is securely managed, I think all of those policies and the software-driven management is going to be the fourth pillar. So I think this is the four area you will hear a lot more about in the next couple of days as well. I'm just giving you a bit of flavor to get started. Now, I will end my conversation with just 2 slides on APJ. So I'll give you a flavor of what APJ in the Asia Pacific and Japan, how we are set up. So very proud of the fact that we now have become number 1 in Asia Pacific and Japan in server. We have been number 1 in the iSCSI storage and growing rapidly in other areas as well. Investing a lot from a services perspective. We have 45,000 service members, team members, but 27,000 of them are in China. Sorry, in India, and 9,000 are in China. So services, India has a huge role to play from a services perspective, and India is serving not only just the customers in India, but globally. So there's a lot of know-how and the infrastructure that we have built in India. Now, we have 43 offices. Last year, our revenue in Asia Pacific and Japan was $12.7 billion. And growth was about 13%. Lot of infrastructure around the region to support your needs and support your requirements. And last but not least is, this is not just about us saying that it's working, but there is a lot of proof points and a lot of customers out of India that have used our infrastructure to run their mission-critical environment and really transform their businesses in the ways they can deliver new sort of capabilities. I mean, or be it Yash Raj films that everybody's aware, I certainly enjoy the movies, and how they had to go and implement the new capabilities for digitization and HD, and they had to make sure that the images can be appropriately archived and processed and managed. All of that work we help them do. Or in terms of reliance on InspectraNet, in terms of delivering more cloud-based services, or in terms of the HPC cluster that on HANS we did, or Adhanik Group on the ERP side. So a lot of great customer support we have in terms of the strategy, in terms of the directions, and in terms of the business momentum we have. So I wanted to thank you for participating here today. Thank you for your time. Clearly a lot of exciting things for us going on in terms of our belief in the vision, proof points from the customers. I want to thank you for your support to Dell. I want to thank you for your time today. and I look forward to engaging with you next couple of days. Thank you very much.